Wait, what about weird?
Hello, I'm Elena,
And I'm Echo.
and this is our podcast, What About Weird? A podcast discussing all things weird from cryptids and aliens to strange science and unhinged history. Today, I am bringing you a weird, wacky, unusual, absolute trip of an episode. So, buckle up, sit back. There's not much relaxing to do, so prepare yourself for the story of the abduction of Betty Andreasson. Have you ever
And
heard of
if
this
you
story?
know, but I'm going to tell the people if you just sniffed the datura plant in your backyard, you need to give it a hot minute before you listen to this one, okay? Because just like
It might
by
make
the
more sense, though.
extension of Elena doing this episode, I don't know. It'll make more
It
sense
might
if you
make more
sniff the
sense.
datura plant.
This episode is wild.
Oh God, okay.
I was like, I love this case. It is absolutely fascinating to me because it pairs the UFO experience and the abduction sort of phenomenon with religion,
Ooh, my
like through a
favorite.
religious lens. It's so cool and so fascinating, but it's so hard to find good sources for this, and the best source
Mm.
is the book The Andreessen Affair by Raymond D. Fowler, which I highly recommend. It's super fascinating, goes into so much more detail than I will. And all of the other resources I found got stuff wrong, or super inconsistent, all this stuff. But I was tearing my hair out researching this because I'm like, it's fascinating. How do I condense it? How do I expand it? What do I talk about? What don't I talk about? What does this mean? What
Yeah,
is
that's the
going on? Did I
problem.
read this right?
Yeah, that's the problem with reading a book, like an entire book for research.
I now understand why it's so hard for movie makers to make the movie nearly like even a half as good as the book. And I now
Yeah.
have so much more respect for the makers of the Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh my God, for
Um,
real?
Yeah, for this one and my last one, I like listened to a full audiobook for both of them, and I'm going to be for my next one, I'm going to be listening to at least two audiobooks for it, and
Oh my
it's
God. Oh
I
yeah.
already know.
Because we
Yeah.
have a special
We
multi-parter
have
coming up
we have a
in October
special
for you guys.
multi-parter.
You must listen to all of it, otherwise we're gonna be sad.
Otherwise, I'm going to cry. Um,
Yeah.
so
You wouldn't want that. You don't want to make someone cry.
I'm gonna cry anyway, but this time it'll be because of you. Not you, Echo, you the listener.
Yeah, yeah.
Listeners, don't make me cry. So, are we ready to get into this?
Yeah,
You said you
I'm
don't know anything about
fascinated.
this? Have you ever heard
No,
about
I've
it?
literally never heard of this.
Okay, this is gonna be interesting. In 1975, Betty Andreessen wrote in a letter, "I'm so happy someone is finally studying UFOs. Now I can tell of my experiences. An encounter in 1967 with UFO occupants." This was a letter that she penned to Dr. J. Allen Hynek. Do you remember who J. Allen Hynek is?
Wasn't he the guy that did Project Blue Book?
Yes. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
kind of the guy in charge of Project Blue Book.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just think it's weird that her name is Betty because every single time I think of like Betty with a UFO abduction, I think of Betty and Barney Hill.
Betty is such a common name for this era.
I guess
I
that's
swear
true. That's true.
every other UFO encounter in this time at this
So
time is Betty.
they're not just going around abducting Bettys. It's just that half of the women are named Betty.
I mean, you're either named Betty and you get abducted, or your name is Susan and you don't get abducted. Or your name is Mary and you see stuff.
That seems about right.
It was very confusing in this audiobook because her name is Betty, but then they'll mention her daughter a lot whose name is Becky. That
Okay.
was yeah. Anyway, yeah, we already talked about Jay Allen Hynek. So, what happened in 1967? So, it was a foggy night in late January in South Ashburnham, which I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm pronouncing it how I would for Durham, but it's New England, so everyone pronounces everything differently. South Burnham is a town in north central Massachusetts, just below the New Hampshire border, for anyone who's curious. So Betty had come home from visiting her husband at the hospital, who had recently been in a car crash. Her family had just finished an early dinner, and they'd sort of gotten in this habit of this early schedule to put the kids to bed, and so that Betty could go see her husband in the hospital. The Andreasson family consisted of Betty, her husband James, who was, like I said, in the car crash, their 7 children, who I'm not really gonna
7?
name.
Holy shit,
7.
that's a lot of kids.
I'm not gonna really name any of them unless they come up, because
Uh-huh.
if we learned anything from Dyatlov Pass, I can't remember
Yeah.
names and I
Too
will
many
forget them.
names. Like, I couldn't even
Yeah.
remember that you skipped somebody because there were just too many people.
I really re-listened to that, and it turns out I didn't skip anybody. So,
When I was doing the editing, I was like, "Wait, it seems like she got everybody."
I can't even remember if I talked about people or not. There's too many people.
Too many people.
The children aren't really important for the most part. But so it's the 7 children, and then Betty's parents, Wayno and Ava Aho.
Wayno?
Which Wayno, fantastic name. He
They were
was,
like, "We don't
I
wanna
think he
name
was,
him Wayne.
well, I
How do
think
we
he was
make the name
Finnish.
Wayne unique?" Oh, okay.
I think he was either like Finnish or Norwegian, but yeah, so that's why he had the name Wayno, which Wayno Aho is just, I don't know. I think that's a marvelous name.
That's actually great paired with the last name. I approve.
I know. And Ava Aho, like that's also cool.
Mm, yeah, good names.
So they were living with the family at this time just to help out, since they had the Andreessens had been sort of struggling a little bit, and then things just got worse when James got in his car crash.
Mm.
So they had come over. They were staying with him to help out with with the 7 children, which I could not imagine.
Oof.
But I mean, my grandparents all have like crazy amounts of siblings, so the family, like I said, the family hadn't had things easy, but they really had a solid core with their fundamentalist Christian beliefs. That really was sort of their anchor in everything. And that's going to come up a lot in this. So I did not pay too much attention when I was going to church as a kid. We didn't go to church much, but do you know what fundamentalist Christians are? Because I had to look it up because I don't know religion very well,
I'm
or
sure I knew it at one
sects
point,
of religion.
but not really.
So fundamentalist Christians are basically people that are like, the Bible means what the Bible says, from
Okay,
my
that's what I thought. They
understanding.
take it literally.
Yeah, if someone knows better than I do and can explain it better, I'm getting that wrong, I am so sorry. Please feel free to reach out to us and correct us. But that's what I understood. I don't know too many of all the different sects too much, and my religious upbringing was weird and Quaker. So on this night, this foggy night in January, all of the children had been dressed for bed, and they were in their living room in the living room with their grandparents, all cuddled up, watching Bozo the Clown, while Becky, the oldest, was helping her mother with a few end of the night chores when the lights began to flicker and went out. All of the children freaked out and ran to the kitchen to their mother for comfort, and it was then that the family saw a strange pink light coming in through the window. They were all very freaked out, and Betty immediately shunted them back into the living room, sort of back and forth, but they're now all huddled in the living room, scared. And Becky told the kids, just hide, look away from it, pray to God, and it'll go away. But everything went eerily silent. Wayno glanced out the window to see if the light was gone, and what he saw was something very, very weird that sort of shook his worldview. He wrote in a letter later to the investigators, that the people that investigated this case, that these creatures I saw through the window of Becky's house were just like Halloween freaks. I thought they'd put on some kind of headdress imitating moon men. It was funny the way they jumped along, one after the other, just like grasshoppers. When they saw me looking at them, they stopped. One of them in front looked at me, and I felt kind of queer. That's all I knew. I
So he's
love the line.
describing moon men
He's
and
saying
they're
that what he's
jumping over each other like cricket?
so what he was saying is he looked out and it looked like people in Halloween costumes that
Oh
were
shit,
dressed
okay.
like
Like
little
moon men.
astronauts.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, or like aliens. And they were they were in a line, not like leapfrogging one over another, but like in a line, like hopping like crickets, like going up and down and up and down. Like
Whoa, okay,
if
that's crazy.
I sort of imagined it like kids in a line sort of jumping along.
Yeah.
And it was at that point that the creatures phased through the door in a single file line, just like
What?
ghosts coming through the door.
That's
Betty told,
crazy.
yeah, and this is probably the tamest it's going to be. So Betty said that she thought they were angels because that's the only thing she could think of that could do something like this. She said Jesus was able to walk through doors and walls and walk on water, so they must be angels. Scriptures kept coming into my mind where it said entertain the stranger for it may be angels unaware. So she's very much like, "Oh, what are these strange bizarre creatures with these miraculous powers?" Well, what do I know with miraculous powers? Angels.
Oh,
Um
whoa. That's a crazy jump, but I mean, that's understandable if you're religious.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I think this case is so wild because everything we see as like sci-fi, she's viewing through this religious lens. So they sort of walked in this sort of herky jerky, robotic, like stiff motion, and as they moved, they left sort of these vapor trails behind. Like I picture it as the old um like CD screensaver, they would bounce around with this sort of vapor trail behind it. I picture it like that, you know.
Yeah.
So these creatures they face through the door, and they're just classic gray aliens. Shorter with these big eyes, little tiny noses, scar-like mouth, like the little like tight one line no lip mouths. I Every time this era you see a description of aliens, it is relatively racist, and I don't like it. I gotta edit that out. Because they're just like, oh yeah, it reminds me of insert racist description here. I'm like, okay, cool, we love that. How can I describe this not super racist?
This was in the 1960s, yeah?
70s.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. These little gray aliens have these dark, shiny blue, form fitting uniforms, and on their sleeves, there's an emblem of a bird with outstretched wings. They each had three digited hands with gloves, and they all wore boots. Betty stood transfixed, and she said later on that it was weird that she felt calm, but they felt friendly. And this just really reinforced that these were angels to her. And as she stood there, the leader of the intruders, who was a bit taller than the others, introduced himself as Quazga.
It's also
Quazga,
like
are
really
we?
crazy that this is such like the stereotypical description of aliens. Like it's so crazy.
Yeah, no, it's wild. Are you following along so far?
Yeah.
Okay. He didn't seem to talk to her. It seemed to be sort of the thoughts arriving in her brain, classic telepathy type stuff. And Quazga reached his hand out to her and said, as he was talking, like in his brain, and her being just good, a good mother and a good hostess, offered them something to eat. And they were all like, yeah, we'll take something. They sort of nodded, like, yes, we would like something to eat. So she went to the kitchen and started cooking some meat on the stove. And the creatures said, no, we can't eat that. Or we can't eat food unless it's burnt. And she's like, okay, that's strange, but
Whoa,
okay. So she
that
started
is strange.
burning it, which if you have like if you're trying to look at it through a religious lens, maybe burnt offerings type. But she's burning this meat, and these aliens are just looking at her aghast, just totally shocked, just flabbergasted by smoke just billowing up from this. And they say, "That's not our type of food. Our food is tried by fire. Knowledge tried by fire. Do you have any food like that?" So Betty took the meat off of the stove and thought for a second. And the conclusion she came to was, she's like, yeah, I have something like that. So she leads them back to the living room and picks up a Bible and hands it to them. Like, here you go. Knowledge tried by fire. So she passes it to Quasga, and in return, he passes her this thin blue book. And as she's looking at the book, she also sees him make copies of the Bible and pass it to the other aliens in the room, and they all flip through the
Make
pages.
copy? How?
Like, I don't know. Everything I read, including in the book that I read, it just said make copies. I picture it like he like picks it up and passes it, but he's still holding the Bible, but I don't know. They all have copies of the Bible, the same Bible. But it's a little thicker than it was before. And she watches them open up the book and flip through the pages, and she notices that all of the pages in the Bibles that they have, are all luminous white, just blank but luminous white.
So all the words, like all the text and everything is gone in the Bible, and now the pages are just a bright white?
Yes.
So they like absorbed all the fucking material?
I guess. I'm assuming. I don't know. They ate them with their brains? I don't know. Like, I don't. It's so weird. It's just a whole bunch of bizarre. And light will come up again and again in this. Like, light is a big thing, which you could argue really plays into that whole religious aspect. I'm not sure how fundamentalist Christian beliefs vary from like what I was sort of raised with, but like the whole light concept of like light and like the
Right.
light and the glory of God and what else. And and to anyone
Mhm.
who listens to this who is Christian and knows better than me, I am so sorry if I am butchering this.
Well,
Feel
it's also when
free
you
again to reach
see
out. But
like so much imagery of
yeah.
religious scenes has like light behind it, and there's so many like passages that reference light when it comes to either like God or religious experience. So I do understand where she's coming from. A lot of
Yeah,
this, like light is
and that's
brought up
why
over and over.
that's why it's fascinating to me. Like, first you have the light outside, which,
Yeah, the
that's just
pink light
classic
or
UFO
whatever.
stuff. But the light, like the light out of the book, and I'm picturing this as, because she's looking at through a religious lens. I know this is sort of stereotypical of me, but I'm picturing it as like a Renaissance painting. Like, when there's a holy figure, they'll have like a circle to show a halo or like the light around them. It's like a
Yes.
circle of gold. I'm picturing that, like an alien looking down into this book with like a circle of light coming out of it. It's really cool in my brain.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was picturing it too.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So after they sort of absorbed the knowledge out of this Bible, she asked them, "What are you doing here?" And they replied, "We're here to help, or we have come to help. Will you help us?" Which I think is an interesting phrasing. We have come to help. Will you help us? Which, if you're
Okay.
bringing it through that religious aspect, sort of the God helps that him who helps himself.
Mhm.
And so they sort of go through this back and forth of them trying to convince her to come with her, and she's asking them, well, why should I? Are you of God? And they don't really answer her, but they're sort of saying the world is going to destroy itself. Will you follow us? And she keeps repeating, I will follow you if you are of God. And this sort of goes back and forth. And eventually she feels her sort of will to resist them start to leave. And it starts to leave while she's looking into their eyes. And it's sort of this hypnotic feeling. So eventually she cracks and is like, okay, I'll go with you. But what about my children and my parents? And Quasgo replies, they will be all right. And they're all sort of standing there frozen. She realizes as he says this, she looks around and they're all sort of frozen. Her whole family, as this like time paused. Later on, when they go through hypnotic regression, the oldest daughter Becky said that she sort of came to during this and was sort of watching them, and it seemed as if the creatures like noticed that she was watching and came over and put her back under some sort of weird hypnosis. Betty, the mother, is like, okay, I'll leave with you guys. But her whole family is frozen in time. She's like, okay, I'm going to leave with you guys. So next thing she knows, she's in a single file line with these creatures. And she also phases right through the front door and out into the yard. And she's floating along. She's realizes she's not walking, but she's floating along in this sort of bouncy movement, like the crickets hopping that Wayno had described, her dad had described, watching them come in. So she's sort of going along with them in this like floating, bouncing, like wave movement. And they go out to this ship that's sitting in the yard, which she says she suspects that her neighbors didn't see it because it was such a foggy night. So she enters into the ship with them and is led into a room with curved walls. How I understood it is the walls are curved like floor to ceiling going out instead of like around like a circle, like the floor is circle shaped, but like the walls are curved, like bubble shaped. In this room, the entities ask her to change. Like they give her this white sort of robe like garment.
Like,
And they
she's
ask her,
really gotta trust these beings, because at this point they've
oh yeah.
frozen her family, and she's like, yeah, I'll follow you into like your weird craft or whatever, and then just change into whatever you want me to change in. Like, sure. In no capacity would I do any of this.
Well, she said that it was weird to her that she kept feeling like she wanted to say no or resist or whatever, but she kept finding herself, she had this feeling of free will. She would want to say one thing and then end up sort of talking herself into saying another thing, and she always found what she said and decided to do went along with what they wanted to do.
Okay.
So she's like, oh, I don't want to go along with you. But after a bit of back and forth, she's like, okay, I'll go along with you. And they're like, awesome, cool, you're going along with us. And then she's like, I don't want to go into the ship. And they're like, well, come on, go along in the ship. And she's like, okay, fine, I'll go along in the ship. And then they ask her to change into this white robe. Sort of like, I picture it like a weird cross between like a religious robe and like a bathrobe or something.
I was totally picturing a bathrobe.
And they're like, we need you to change into this. And she's like, no, I don't want to. I don't know if you guys are watching me. I don't know what's going on. I don't want to change into this. Who are you? What the fuck is going on? And they're like, please change. We need you to keep going. We need you to keep going. And she's like, I don't want to change. And they're like, please change. And she eventually is like, okay, fine, I'll change. So she changes and then is led into another room that's just entirely lit up with light from everywhere. Not like there's one source of light, like it's just bright. Like,
yeah, the light of 1,000 suns just in the room.
Think like a light, like in like an afterlife scene in a movie where it's just white and bright everywhere. So at this point, she is floated over to sort of a table-like block, and the classic UFO movie examination takes place. You know, you got the probes, you got the weird lights, you got all that stuff.
Shit.
At one point, they insert a needle into her nose, and she says she heard like a popping, like some sort of membrane
Ew.
was broken, which just, ugh. I just
That's
imagine it like,
terrifying.
I imagine it like the worst COVID test of your life.
Oh shit.
Yeah, they go up there, they stir it around, but it's like painful and you hear a pop. They remove the needle, and at the end of the needle is a spiked BB, like a little BB, but with spikes on it. Which, where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah,
Did she
like
go up
almost
there and they're like,
like is this
"Put it
something
on
they had implanted in her before and now
Yeah.
they're coming back and removing it? Because that is not supposed to be in your
Or
body.
did she like find this and shove it up her nose as a kid, like all little kids do, and they're like, "Hey, let's get this out for you."
Oh, maybe.
That like, but I'm thinking it's given that a lot of UFO encounters and like abductions are very tropey.
Uh-huh.
I do think this is like a implant or something probably. But so she's in a lot
Interesting.
of pain during this sort of examination, and Quazga comes over and sort of does like lays his hands on her, and her pain goes away, which I think is interesting. And
Yeah.
it's another, you can bring that back to the religious thing of, you know, laying hand, the whole like religious lay on hands healing type.
Right. Mhm.
So after this, there was this big sort of camera lens that came over her and just sort of sat there, and she felt like she was being watched by it. It's sort of, I know this is very hodgepodge. This whole story is hodgepodge all over the place.
No, it's making sense to me so far because you have like a
Okay.
direct timeline of stuff that's happening. Like it's you're very much following a storyline of what's going on with her. So I don't know. I feel
Okay.
like it makes
I
a lot
have
of sense so far.
Okay, I have all the details in my brain and in my notes, and I'm trying to sort of go through it. And I have the details where if you have questions, I can go through it. And I'm afraid that I may be leaving out important details. So if you have any questions, just ask.
Okay.
So after this camera observes her and all this sort of examination goes on, Quazga tells her that, or she hears the alien. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. That she hears the alien saying that she seems to be missing something, and it has something to do with reproduction. And she's like, "Well, that's weird. I wonder if they're talking about the fact that I had a hysterectomy."
Oh shit.
That
Cuz
is,
I was wondering cuz a
and
lot
she's
of
sort of
these
hearing this, and
abduction
like they're talking to each
cases
other.
yeah, like a lot of these abduction cases happen in like they're like interested in fertility somehow. Either the fertility of women or there have been like several cases of like, men getting abducted and they describe an alien woman trying to sleep with them or whatever.
Yeah, I know there's some case or another where someone got like half abducted. I don't remember what case this was, but this guy got half abducted. They performed a few tests and were like, "Okay, bye. Yeah, we can't use you. You're too infirm and old." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm old and I had a vasectomy. What do you want?" And they like kick him
Yeah.
off the ship. And he's like, "What was all that about?" And they just fly off. I was like, "Okay." But yeah,
Yeah,
I
cuz
think I thought that was interesting that they're like, "You're missing something." And they were super confused and concerned. And she could like sort of, she felt like she was eavesdropping on their telepathic communication of them being like, "Shit, fuck. Her uterus is gone. What do we do, guys? We broke her." Or she got broke. What do we do? I think that's just interesting. So after all of that happened, Quazga comes and talks and is talking to her and says, "You've misunderstood some places. There's spots where you're not completely filled with light."
okay.
Which again with the light, and also, you know, if you put it like, it's like, has she misunderstood? In her mind, you could be thinking like, is she thinking maybe I've misunderstood the Bible some places? Am I not like pure and religious enough? Like, what's going on? You could argue that some of these like these spots without light are places where her life has been rough, and it's like her faith has failed. I don't know. It's
Because,
just
like, my thing is,
interesting.
are they talking about her mentally, or is this still in reference to the fact that they're like, hey, your uterus is missing?
But I mean, she's saying some of that. They're saying some of that, but then you're not completely filled with light is interesting.
Right. But it, like, I don't know, that could be in reference to so many things because it could be in reference to her life, her mental state, her physically. Like,
Maybe they're
that
like,
could
"Hey,
just
Betty,
be
you
in
got
reference to so
depression."
many things.
It could be a reference to her happiness because she was going through it. She was really going through it.
Yeah,
Like
that's
with the
true.
house I had read that the house they'd recently moved into, it was really run down and it was sort of like a Hail Mary move, which imagine buying a house at all, first off, and then imagine buying a house as a Hail Mary move, like a
Oh
last
my
ditch effort.
God. That is
It was like
crazy because you could
going through
not
it.
do that in today's economy. Like,
No.
there's just no way. But something else that, like, because she's coming from like this religious standpoint. If I was
Mhm.
someone who was religious and like some religious being told me that I wasn't completely filled with light, I would think that it had something to do with like a religious failure on my part. Like
Yeah,
maybe
that's
they're
what I
telling
would
me I
think.
haven't done enough to, like, in terms of God, like I need to do more or something, like give to the church
That's
or
what I would
whatever.
think of like my faith isn't strong, it has weak spots.
Right.
Or
Yeah, that's
my
how I
like
would interpret it.
yeah, that like I would take it that way or like a either that or like a purity thing. So I think that's interesting.
Interesting.
Okay, things are about to get so much more wild. Just they're gonna ramp up. You ready? I might start having you as things get more and more wild. I might start having play a little game with you and have you guess how things are gonna get wild.
Oh my God, okay.
Do you want to do that?
Sure. I'm not going to be able to guess correctly at any point in time because there's just no way. But sure.
Okay, I'll let you know when it's time to guess if I remember. So
Okay.
after this conversation, she's brought back to the changing room and is allowed to change back into her own clothes. And as she took off the garment, it stuck to the floor and melted into it. Just like dissolved into the floor.
It just like turns into a liquid and goes down the drain.
Well, it was described as sticking to the floor and then like melting into it. Like not melting on top of it, like melting into
Like,
it.
yeah, like dissolving into the floor.
Yeah, I mean I sort of picture it as like it's sitting on top of it and then it just slowly not like unwrinkles, but just like sinks in
Sinks
to it,
down.
like
Interesting.
something sinking into water. That's how I
Yeah.
picture it. So, after this, she's prompted to, or they float along a track that's carved into this cavern, and she's prompted to sit on this sort of molded glass, plasticky chair. And a lid comes down around enclosing her. It starts getting colder and colder, and they tell her to keep her eyes closed. And can you now guess what happens?
Oh my God, I don't know, but it sounds like they're like fucking freezing her. Like they have her in like this glass compartment and what they're trying to like preserve her or something. I don't know.
You might be close with the preservation. They connect a tube to her mouth and nose and fill this um, capsule up with this gray liquid, and it sort of pulses and vibrates. And then through the tube in her mouth, they pump this sweet, thick, syrupy type fluid into her mouth and her throat. And she's sort of in there for a little while, and then it starts, and she sort of starts relaxing, but then the gray liquid drains away. Yeah, that's not what you were expecting, was it? They pickled her.
No.
They made a Betty pickle.
They pickled her. So bad. That's so weird.
Yeah, no, it's this, like I said, it's weird. Yeah, if bread is the body of Christ and wine is the blood of Christ, I don't want to know what this syrup was.
Ugh.
I don't want to know.
Oh, God. I hate that entire sentence.
So I'm just reading this and I'm like, so I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, this is like communion. And then I'm like, no, it's not like wine. It's not like bread. What is this? And I was like, oh God, what is this? So now you have to live with that terrible thought too. So after this liquid's drained from around her, she's taken out and she's met with two aliens with dark cloths over their heads, just like they took up like a blanket and put it over their head like ghost like a little blanket. And they continue to float along this track, moving further and further from where they started. I'm picturing it like a hover, like you know those walking sidewalks in
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah.
in like the airport. I'm picturing it like that,
Mhm.
except they're floating over it.
Right.
Which is interesting because that comes up in a lot of other abduction cases of like sort of this walking sidewalk type thing. So they float down this hallway and they continue down this track until they pass through this sort of mirror-like portal and they find themselves in a new area. Can you guess what this new area is like?
Oh my God. Um, can I is it can it be religious, sort of? Like, is it another, like,
Yeah. I
weird
mean, I sort of took it religious. It's if you can get the vibe, I'll give you points.
the vibe. God, I really have no idea. Like the Garden of Eden, I don't know.
Uh No, totally the other direction.
Oh,
It
shit.
is so she finds herself in this sort of red, everything is red, like red light from
Oh.
everywhere. And this place is not a scrap of vegetation anywhere to be seen. And it's just sort of these crumbling stucco buildings everywhere. She's floating along and she notices that in this light with the cloths on their heads, it makes the aliens look like they're headless.
She's like,
And
"Great, I'm in hell now."
she's like, great, this is scary, this is terrifying. It gets so much worse. She's looking around and she starts to see things crawling all over these crumbling buildings. And these things are these weird, spindly armed, barrel chested, headless alien monkeys.
What the fuck? How big are they? Did it say?
I I didn't see anywhere how big they were, but instead of heads, they had
Interesting.
two big stalks with eyes on them. Big, black, glassy, cat-like eyes that are sort of swiveling all around, moving independently. They're climbing all over. They're looking at her. They're staring at her. And she is scared, utterly shitless. And she's like, fuck this. Fuck all of this. Get me out of here. Except she probably didn't use those words. And like, she's like, dear God, save me. Get me out of this. So can you guess the purpose of these creatures?
I have no idea. It's gotta be seeing something, right, with their weird eyes?
So, she finds out later from the aliens that these monkey creatures, they harvest their eyes to replace the aliens' eyes.
Whoa, I
Like
never would have guessed that.
like
That was so far
organ
out of the
donors.
realm of possibility for
I
me.
know, which makes you
Like, their
think that's
sole purpose
probably
is to donate their eyeballs, and what do they regrow them, or do they just not have eyes anymore?
I don't know. I couldn't find that. It didn't say in the book or anything.
What the
But I'm
fuck?
wondering if that's why they had the cloths over their heads. The aliens did because they're like, oh yeah, if they see we have their eyeballs, they're gonna freak out.
Because they put the cloths on before they went in there.
Yeah, and but
Whoa.
Betty didn't have one,
That's
and
crazy.
but it is just wild that they're like, yeah, we use this absolute hellscape for an area to grow like organ donors, basically alien organ donors.
That's
And
crazy.
also,
So
what do you mean
what
replace
their
their?
yeah, their
What
eyes
does it
just
mean by replace
deteriorate
their
over
eyes?
time?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Does it deteriorate after time, or is it like if your eye gets hurt, instead of getting you a glass eye, we just like lop an eye off of one of these monkey guys and put them in? Is it is it just from being in that one room with bright light for too long? It just fucks up their irises and their like retinas and shit.
God, who knows? But that's really weird.
Anyways, so after this utter hellscape, they go through yet another mirror like portal and end up, can you guess?
Now is it the Garden of Eden? Because that's the only thing I can think
Yes,
of.
actually. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. It
cool.
is.
Finally got it right.
It's this lush, everything is green. Green light from all around. Everything is super green. And there's like
This is
buildings all
where they
around.
grow the extra fingers for when they get chopped off.
They just progressively go through the alien's body. And this is the room where we grow whatever random parts we need. And then this is the room where we grow the skin. You don't look there. We don't look in the skin room. No, this is just like a beautiful, lush area. All of Betty's fear just melts away, and the aliens take off their hoods when they get to this area. So she's looking around and she's seeing all these strange alien plants, all these like creatures. She sees these weird fish bird combination creatures like flitting about. And eventually, as they're going across this track, they come out sort of over and in front of this strange star-shaped pyramid with one edge cut off. So imagine if you're looking at like a star. It didn't say what kind of star, it just said a star. Imagine looking at a star and then you just take, like, I'm assuming just one of the points or something off, and then just build that up into a point. Like, just build, like, that's the floor plan, and then you just build it up to a point. I know it's weird. It's like it's like extra pointy pyramid. And they pass through these bright crystals that were giving off light, and they just keep going. And this whole time, she keeps feeling like they haven't left the planet, but they have left Earth, which is a weird way to put it. Like maybe they're in another dimension or another world or something.
Yeah.
But then sort of the underground, like chiseled tunnel in the beginning of this sort of implies they went underground. I don't know.
So they're
It's
not on another
interesting.
planet, but they're not on Earth. So that has to mean like
Yeah.
a separate dimension. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because she's like, oh, we're not. I don't think we left the planet, but we're not. We're not still on Earth. Maybe we went into space. I
Huh.
don't know, but I don't remember leaving the planet. Which it's a whole weird thing. So they're passing through these crystals. They're in this green area. They're passing through these crystals, and um, and they're going towards this weird pyramid. And they come out of these crystals. I'm not sure if they're phasing through them or if it's like a tunnel of crystals. I sort of pictured it as phasing through the crystals because it didn't specify and they phased through stuff earlier. So they
Yeah.
come out of this crystal, and can you guess what they see?
Oh my god, they come out of the crystal. What do they see? Is it another weird creature?
Yes, it is, sort of.
Okay, okay. I don't know what kind of creature it is, so you go from here.
She describes it as a giant eagle-looking bird, which, remember, in the beginning, the aliens all had uniforms that had little birds on them.
Oh, so it's like that kind of bird. Maybe.
Yeah. And it has this bright, bright, intense light behind it. And they're getting closer and closer on this track, and it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And it just becomes too hot for Betty to handle. It's so hot, so incredibly hot. And then they stop and they're watching it. It's just so hot. It's so incredibly hot. And she just starts praying to God, like, dear God, make it stop, make it stop. What is this? Oh God, save me. And as she's standing there, the bird bursts into flames and it just burns and burns and keeps burning until it's just a little pile of ash.
Like a
And
phoenix.
yes, and as it burns, she smells this sweet sort of incense fragrance, which you don't often hear about this, but in like the early phoenix sort of mythology and lore, the phoenix would build itself a nest of spice bush twigs, which when burned smells like incense, and then when they caught fire, they would burn with these sticks. This like in this lore. And then out of
Okay.
this pile of ashes, can you guess what comes out of this pile of ashes?
Is it like the phoenix, like the bird rises again?
No. It is a giant gray worm just laying there,
Oh,
being a little
okay.
scriggly. Yeah, it's just kind of hanging out there, being kind of wiggly, and she's like, "Oh God, what is that?" And she's watching it just in sheer astonishment and confusion, and this voice comes into her head and says, "You have seen and you have heard. Do you understand?" And she's like, "What the fuck? No.
Yeah,
You want me to
like,
understand this shit? No, I don't understand
I
any
would
of this."
literally lose my shit. I would be like, "Are you fucking serious? No, I don't understand. Like, you've
I
gotta
mean, she
be
doesn't.
kidding me."
She's a God-fearing woman. She doesn't use any of those words, but she's like, "The fuck? What just happened? What drugs have you put me on? Like, what? Excuse me?" So sh- she's like, "No, I don't understand. I don't even know why I'm here." And the voice goes, "I have chosen you." She's like, "For what? What have you chosen me for?" She's like, "Are you God? Are you?" She just keeps asking, "Are you God? Are you the Lord God?" She's like, "What is this?" And the voice, she sort of goes back and forth with this voice, which is just such a funny thing of just her being like, "Why the fuck am I here? I have chosen you, child. Do you understand?" "No, please, let me understand." "I have chosen you, child." So they sort of do this back and forth. And um, at one point, she just breaks down and just starts proclaiming how much she believes in God and Jesus. And she's like, "I have faith. I believe in God. God will help me prevail." And to this, the voice responds, "We know, child. We know that you do. This is why you have been chosen. I am sending you back now. Fear not. Be of comfort. Your own fear makes you feed these things. I would never harm you. It is your fear that you draw to your body that causes you to feel these things. I can release you, but you must release yourself of that fear through my son." And at this point, she just starts crying, just breaks down, absolutely crying.
It
She's
sounds
like,
like the aliens are just taking advantage. Very
"Yeah,
gonna be
yeah, that's kind of what
gullible
I
if they
thought."
fucking abduct her and beam a voice into her head.
Yeah, if like, because none of this, they're like, "Yes, I am God."
Yeah.
She's just like, "Are you God?" And they're just like, "I mean, if you want me to be."
Yeah, pretty
And
much.
it's spelled in this, "You must release your fear through my son." Son spelled as in like my child, but it could be sun as in sun, like
Mm.
sun in the sky, because
Because
that
she could have
bright bird sort of,
misinterpreted it because she was
yeah,
thinking about God and Jesus,
that is the
but they
context.
could have meant it like sun as in all of the light that they've been beaming everywhere.
Yeah, like maybe this is just hardcore therapy. She's like, "Dude, in the darkness you'll find the light. Just like look for the light and you won't be afraid." Like the metaphorical light. And she's like, "God, are you this worm?
Oh
This worm, is
gosh.
this worm Jesus? I'd still love Jesus if he was a worm." So after she's done crying, she's brought back to the ship through all of this whole way she was brought out here. She goes through the crystals, the green area, the red area, the tunnel, and is dropped back off. She's put back into this the capsule with the liquid for a little bit, and then they drop her back off at her house. And the entities tell her that she won't remember things for a little bit, and that her fellow humans will not believe her until much time, and they specify her time had passed, which I think is an interesting specification, that like they're running
Like,
on a different time.
yeah, but they're basically like, no one is gonna believe you until you're dead?
Maybe,
Because
but
that's what
yeah,
that
no,
sounds
they're.
like to me. Like, no one will believe you until your time has passed, which to me sounds like no one is gonna
I didn't
believe you
think about
until
it
after
that
you're
way.
dead.
I didn't even think about it that way. That is an interesting way to put it. I was thinking of it as like they're on a different timeline since they're in a different dimension. Their time runs differently. So when many years of her timeline's time has passed, will people believe her? But I think that's a good point, that like nobody would believe her until. Interesting. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. So for the next few days, do you remember? So you remember that little blue book that they gave her in exchange for the Bible in the very beginning?
Right.
I know a lot has
Uh-huh.
happened. So over the next few days, anytime her house was empty, like her kids were at school, her parents were off doing stuff, whatever, she would rush to where she had hidden the blue book and would try and read it. But it was full of strange, strange symbols.
Well,
Um,
and her husband
and so
James was the one
eventually,
that saw them right before they came into the
no,
house,
James
right?
James was in the hospital. He wasn't here. It was her father that
Oh,
saw them before they
that's
came
who
in the
I
house.
was thinking about.
But because
Yeah.
he was also very religious, he, outside of this short letter he wrote in the beginning, did not talk to anybody about this. Betty tried to get him to talk to hypnotherapists and investigators, and he was like, I don't want to talk about this. It's the devil. I, she did
Well,
show the book to her oldest daughter, Becky, because Betty was not aware that Becky had any memory of this until Becky came up to her a few days after the event and said she was having these weird dreams of like sort of spaceman visitors. And Betty was like, no, this is all real. Oh my God, this is all real. I thought this was just like some weird dream, and somehow I had this strange blue book. And so she showed the book to Becky, her daughter, but after about 10 days or so, the book conveniently disappeared. So, like, no physical proof. But for years and years, nobody in the family wanted to talk about it. The family remembered the whole family that was there remembers the pink light. The father remembers watching the aliens, like, come up to the house and not much else. The oldest daughter remembers seeing them come up and then seeing them in the house a little bit. But Betty remembers the whole thing. And she was so afraid for years to talk to anybody about this because she was afraid of being called crazy and being ridiculed. But most importantly, she was really afraid. In her letter that she wrote to Dr. Hynek, she was saying that she was afraid of being kicked out of the church and afraid of being accused of consorting with demonic forces. She's like,
right.
no, I know for her, this was a huge religious experience, but she was like, no, other people are going to see this as demons. Um,
Right. Either that or even if they were like, "Oh, you say it's an alien presence of sorts." They have kind of like this mindset that if aliens exist, that maybe God can't exist because that's like
uh,
proves the existence of other worlds and universes and stuff that aren't necessarily in the Bible. And I know like a lot of people who are religious believe in God and aliens, but
I know from some of those super religious people that I know that it is, you can't believe in both. Some people are like, well, it's proof that God is out there and is just creating different forms of life. But I know a
right.
lot of people that's like, no, that is the devil. It's either they don't exist and if aliens exist, then God doesn't exist, or they're like, no, that's the devil and that's the devil putting on a mask. And with this whole religious experience, it is evil forces trying to draw you away from God. And so that's what she was afraid of people saying, is that she was being drawn away from God by these like false idols, these false deities, you know? So
Interesting.
when she eventually came forward to Dr. Hynek and Raymond Fowler, the investigator who helped with all this, she said it was a huge relief just to get all of this off of her chest. And a lot of this comes from hypnotic regression sessions. The whole book that I read is basically just like a transcript of hypnotic regression sessions with Fowler. And for those of you who don't know what hypnotic regression is, it's basically hypnotizing someone to put them back in the mindset and the space that they were when they experienced something traumatic, which in my multi-parter that I'm going to be doing next month, that will come up a bunch, so you need to know. But it's sort of like it's very controversial because some things can be very suggestive. It can be very
Yeah,
like
you can
people can
definitely,
lead
like,
questions and
implant
stuff.
memories into people or, like, convince them
Yeah.
that something happened when it really didn't, just through the power of suggestion.
Yeah, but this whole story is so wild. There's like, where
That's
do you
my
even
thing,
come
it's
up with
like,
this?
don't get me wrong, I've had some weird fucking dreams that are, like, along the lines of some shit happening like this. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like the entire family are weird, like, and if they're being truthful and then other people also remember the creatures, like, that at least has some substance to it.
Yeah. No, I do think that's interesting. So I'm almost done here. I got one little paragraph or two little paragraphs left. So during the hypnotic regression, it was really weird because they go into this a whole lot more in the book, but I feel like I have to mention this.
Mhm.
That so they're trying to hypnotically regress her to access this, and it seemed like she kept breaking out of it.
Hmm.
Like every time they went to certain parts, there were certain things it seemed like they couldn't access. And at some points, it seemed like she was even like taken over by these entities because she started talking different, responding how they seemed to be
Ooh,
respond, and
like,
they started asking like the entities questions. And if they phrased it wrong, she would answer like as Betty would. But if they asked the questions directed to like, hey, we would like to speak to the entities, what the fuck, you know? But if they're like,
almost
hey
like
Betty, what the fuck, she's like, watch your language. But if they went to the entities and were like, hey entities, what the fuck, they're like, you will not understand, you foolish mortal, or whatever. So as time went on, the children grew up, and Betty eventually divorced James. Betty's parents passed away, but Betty went on to move to Florida and marry another abductee. They both wrote books and went to
whoa.
UFO conventions, and they reportedly lived happily together until Betty's death in 2022.
So did she
And that is
remain
all I have.
religious throughout her entire
Yeah,
life too? Like,
she remained super religious. I
and
looked
so
up I
what, she
found her
just
obituary.
believed
She
that
believed
the
this was a
aliens
religious
were
experience.
angels? Okay. But here's the thing,
Yeah.
so she's going to a bunch of UFO conventions. She married another abductee. Did that abductee also believe in God and believe it was a religious experience?
She seems to have remained religious her whole life because in her obituary it said a lot about her love of God and her faith and stuff. Which I'm assuming they wouldn't put in if she was no longer religious. And I did not read the book her husband wrote or the book that she wrote after the Andreasson that was written after the Andreasson affair that she wrote. But I'm assuming like she wouldn't, because I haven't met very many super religious people that have married people who aren't super religious.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming, or maybe he is religious and was like, oh, these are aliens. Or I don't know. Here's what happened to me. I don't know what I think about it. She married another abductee and they reportedly had a very healthy and happy relationship, which honestly, I love for her because some of the stuff that I was reading about James, I was her husband at the time of the abduction. I was like, oh, this guy's not cool. He just like wasn't there. A lot of it was just like he wasn't there for her and like just kept fucking the money up and like was kind of the reason why their life kept getting fucked up and like wasn't going really anywhere among other things. So like good for her for like finding somebody who's also into the same weird shit and being in a happy, healthy relationship.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Oh, so that's just, it's a whole interesting story. It's fascinating to me. You can see why it's one of my favorite, like, it just fascinates me, this case.
Yeah, because it is really interesting. I haven't heard of very many UFO abduction cases where they've equated it with a religious experience of like, I was abducted by angels and like God spoke to me.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder of like, well, how many, is this the same thing that religious experiences used to be? And we're now just viewing it through a
Right.
more science-y lens? Or were religious experiences always alien encounters?
But don't most religious experiences have like a lesson or a moral to them? Like, what was the lesson or the moral of this? Like, did she come to any conclusion about what she actually learned? Like, what the reason was?
Well, they were saying that like the Earth is going to destroy itself in the very beginning, but I think I, that's sort of a classic UFO thing. But I think this was more of a personal thing for Betty of like with the oh you're not full of light. Do you understand? We've chosen you, and like I think it's sort of a. I think it. I personally think that it is her like realizing that her faith needs to be strengthened and that she has to work on her there's a lot of ways she has to work on herself. I think it's a personal message for her. But also there's so much stuff that was blocked out by these entities supposedly during those
Okay.
regression sessions that like we don't know. So was like is that where the moral is hidden? I don't know.
They're like, we're gonna go through this room, get our new eyes to show you that you have to have new eyes and a refreshed viewpoint on your life. And then we're gonna show you this room where this bird gets burned up and then turns into a worm to show you that you have to change and go through some sort of metamorphosis. Do you understand?
Maybe, yeah. And they're like, hey, all the like you're not full of light. You're not as the best version of yourself you can be, you know?
Okay. Yeah, okay, that
And
would
then
make more
and
sense to
then
me.
after this, she left a not good relationship and got into a good relationship.
Right.
So like,
Huh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know.
I can't believe I'd never heard of this one before, like, at
Yeah,
all.
it's interesting because it's one that a lot of people cover, but not in great detail. And it's also one that you hear about after you've gotten into it a bit. Like when I was just surface level into this stuff, I was like, oh, I know Betty and Barney Hill. I know the Pascagoula abduction, a few other things. But it was like, I didn't know about this one. Then I started digging into it more. But a lot of the sources I found were like some local newspapers writing local legend stories. It's like, this lady was abducted by aliens and she thought they were angel. Isn't that so funny? And like that's all the story. So it's a interesting weird story and it follows a lot of classic abduction tropes up until you get to the like religious experience shit. But the beginning parts and then weird shit happens that's a transformative experience, and
Interesting.
like a weird message that needs to be decoded. Like it's sort of I don't know, I think it's fascinating. Did she possibly have a mental breakdown from all of this stress she was going through in her life
Yeah.
and have like a crazy ass dream or like a mental snap moment that was a
Yeah.
perceived as a transformative religious experience? We don't know.
Or
It's
she
just
was abducted by
fascinating to talk about.
aliens, or they were
Yeah.
legitimately angels. We will never know.
Yeah. Maybe they were angels and we're all going to hell. Who knows?
That one was awesome, though.
It's Jesus on acid.
Do you want to do the outro or do you want me to?
Sure. Thank you for listening. If you liked it, please rate the podcast and share it with the weird people in your life. Follow us on Instagram at whataboutweird.pod, where we often share pictures related to the episodes. We are We are also on Blue Sky as What About Weird Pod. If you have any topic suggestions or personal weird stories, please DM us or email us at whataboutweirdpod@gmail.com. And always remember
To ask about the weird.
bye for now.
Bye for now.